What if I told you that almost every woman who crosses the line of betrayal hides something so deeply buried that most men will never recognize it, not because they're blind or naive, but because the mind instinctively protects whatever threatens to break the life it depends on? When a woman cheats, whether it's a late night conversation that drifted too far, an emotional connection that grew stronger than she expected, or a physical moment she never planned, she almost always conceals the same truth. She doesn't hide just the behavior or the circumstance. She hides the psychological shift that happens inside her. She hides the way her thoughts twist to keep the secret alive. She hides how her body betrays her in tiny, almost invisible ways. She hides the story she tells herself so she can keep moving forward. And the silence she carries becomes so polished, so practiced, it becomes almost impossible to detect. But think about why you're here. Something in you already sensed it. Maybe from something in your own life, maybe from someone you know, or maybe just from the quiet moments when your mind starts asking questions you drown out during the day. You understand that what women hide after betrayal is rarely the obvious detail. It's not just the name, the location, the timeline, it's the deeper imprint. Because cheating doesn't happen in a vacuum. It reshapes the inner world, and that inner world always tries to hide the truth to keep the outer world from collapsing. Before we dive deeper, pause for a moment. If you care about connection, psychology, emotional intelligence, and the truth about how people behave when their secrets are at war with their values, stay with me. Every week, I want to take you through the patterns no one talks about, the moments you sense but can't name, the invisible signs that show up before the truth ever does. Because once you understand the psychology, once you see the small details, you will never look at relationships the same way again. Now let's return to that silence. It's not just the absence of sound, it's the space where guilt tries to hide. It's the mask the mind constructs to keep the world from falling apart. And to show you how this works, let's step into three different relationships, three stories that reveal how betrayal hides itself in the most ordinary moments. Imagine a kitchen in the early morning. The sun hasn't fully risen, the coffee machine hums softly, and a married couple moves around each other in a familiar rhythm. He butters toast while she packs lunches. Everything looks normal. If you walked into that kitchen, you would see nothing wrong. But watch closely. When he asks, "Did you sleep okay?" she answers with a gentle smile, but her eyes shift away before the smile reaches them. She touches her phone, not to check it, but simply to make physical contact with it, as if anchoring herself to something no one else can see. She adds extra sugar to his coffee and kisses him before he leaves for work. To him, these gestures feel loving. To her, they are a shield. She wants the morning to feel normal so she doesn't have to face the truth trembling beneath the surface. Routine becomes her hiding place, and he, grateful for the comfort of predictability, never sees the storm she is trying to cover. Now picture a different story, a couple separated by distance. Every night they sit on video calls, lit only by the glow of their screens. Their conversations flow like usual, updates, jokes, small details, but tonight she responds just a second too late. Not long enough to cause suspicion, just long enough to feel slightly off. Her smile looks real, but it doesn't reach her eyes fully. When he says, "I miss you," she blinks a bit slower, like her brain needs an extra moment to process the words. What he doesn't know is that her thoughts are not fully with him. An hour before the call, she was with someone else. And now she's trying to switch back into the role she knows he expects. The brain cannot shift worlds instantly. The emotional residue lingers in her tone, her timing, her expression. But he believes she's tired, or preoccupied, or stressed, because believing anything else would crack the fragile trust holding their distance together. Then imagine young love, fast, intense, electric. A couple who can't stop holding hands, laughing, sending messages every hour. Everything feels new and magical, but beneath the excitement hides a shadow that often appears in early relationships: insecurity, the fear of not being enough, the desire to feel validated. She tells him he's different from anyone else. And she believes it until a moment of temptation slips into her life. Maybe a kiss at a party, maybe a flirtation she didn't expect. She wakes the next day overwhelmed by guilt, terrified of losing the person she cares about. So she hides the truth, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much. She pours more affection into the relationship, tells him she loves him, texts him more, holds him tighter. To him, everything seems even better. To her, it is a desperate attempt to drown the guilt before it surfaces. Three different relationships, three different secrets, and yet the pattern is the same. She doesn't hide just the action of betrayal. She hides the psychological residue, guilt, fear, confusion, the split inside her that she hopes no one notices. And what makes this so complex is that these women are not villains. They're not cold. They're not heartless. They're human beings caught between desire, fear, attachment, and the instinct to protect what they don't want to lose. Because the truth is, betrayal is rarely simple. It's not always about falling out of love or wanting someone new. Sometimes it's about the mind trying to quiet an inner conflict. Sometimes it's about fear. Sometimes it's about loneliness. And sometimes it's about a moment that spiraled faster than the person could stop. But once the line is crossed, the silence begins. And that silence becomes the secret most men never see. The first sign of this secret isn't withdrawal. It isn't distance. It's not coldness, not avoidance. It's the exact opposite. The first sign is an exaggerated sense of normalcy, the sudden warmth, the increased affection, the carefully controlled tone. Because when you're hiding something that could break your world apart, the mind doesn't make you look suspicious. It makes you perform the version of yourself you think others want to see. Her smile becomes a little softer, her touch becomes a little warmer, her attention becomes a little sharper. And the man receiving this extra affection feels safe, loved, secure. He has no idea that the closeness he's enjoying is often fueled not by love alone, but by guilt. It's the mind trying to restore balance. It's the psyche attempting to erase the evidence by overlaying it with tenderness. And this is where most men get blindsided. They look for distance, for coldness, for avoidance. They expect the clues to appear in what is missing. But in reality, the clues often appear in the sudden presence of something more. The extra smile, the extra softness, the extra care, the extra attention. Because the brain, when overwhelmed by guilt, doesn't retreat first. It compensates. This is where the story begins. If the first sign is the performance of closeness, the second sign is the quiet, inconsistent absence that slips through when the mind gets tired of holding two worlds at once. This absence isn't loud or dramatic. It doesn't show up as canceled plans or big changes. Instead, it appears in tiny fragments, in the small pauses where her attention doesn't land the way it used to. It shows up in the details that seem too subtle to matter, but your body catches them before your mind does. She's sitting right next to you on the couch while you talk about your day, but something in her expression seems muted. She laughs at your jokes, but the laughter feels slightly delayed, like she's performing the reaction she knows you expect instead of genuinely feeling it. You tell her something important, something you normally share with her, and instead of leaning in with curiosity, she nods and shifts her gaze. She's listening, but not fully. She's present, but only partly. It's not coldness. It's the effort of managing the secret draining her emotional presence. You see it again on nights that once felt effortless between you. Maybe you go out for dinner, and everything seems normal on the surface. But the moment you share something vulnerable, her response lands wrong. She hesitates as if her mind is searching for the right tone, the right expression, the right script to maintain the image she's holding. That half-second pause, that slight disconnect, isn't laziness or boredom. It's the weight of carrying a conflicting inner world. Her mind is processing two realities at once: what she feels, what she fears, and what she must not reveal. In long-distance relationships, this second sign shows up differently. The calls that once stretched for hours start feeling shorter, not because she cares less, but because her energy is divided. There's always an excuse: a long day, a headache, a last-minute task, or simply falling asleep earlier than usual. None of these moments seem suspicious individually. They're too small, too ordinary. But over time, you start noticing a pattern. The availability shrinks, the enthusiasm thins, the presence feels like it's being rationed. She's there because she wants to maintain the connection, but part of her is somewhere else, weighing her, slowing her, distancing her without meaning to. This is not a deliberate choice, it's a psychological side effect. When someone holds a heavy secret, their ability to be emotionally open diminishes. Intimacy requires honesty, vulnerability, exposure. And exposure is dangerous when you're hiding something. So the mind protects itself by creating distance. Soft, gentle distance that feels like normal fatigue or distraction. She doesn't consciously choose it. Her emotions simply shut down in small increments. Her defensive walls rise just enough to avoid being truly seen. Men often misinterpret this stage. They tell themselves she's stressed, distracted, overwhelmed, and sometimes she is. Life does create these moments naturally. But when the absence becomes inconsistent, when the warmth fluctuates between too much and too little, when she leans in one day and drifts the next, that's when the deeper truth begins to surface. Your intuition senses it long before your thoughts do. Something feels mismatched, not wrong enough to confront, but not right enough to ignore. It lingers like a quiet tap on the inside of your chest. And then comes the twist, the moment in many relationships where the truth reveals itself not through behavior but through something unexpected. Sometimes secrets don't slip out through actions or words. They reveal themselves through remnants of the past, artifacts left behind by moments no one expected to be discovered. There was a man who spent 20 years believing his marriage was everything he ever hoped for. He loved his wife deeply. They raised children together, built traditions, and crafted a life woven with shared laughter and memories. Nothing about their life seemed broken. Nothing seemed suspicious. He trusted her completely, not out of naivety, but because she had never given him a reason not to. One evening, while searching through an old drawer, he found a folded piece of paper. A letter. It wasn't addressed to him. It wasn't written recently. It was a draft, a message never sent, words written years earlier in her handwriting. Words that said, "You make me feel alive. With you, I remember who I am. You give me something I didn't know I was missing." He sat there holding the paper, feeling the ground shift beneath him. Not because the letter was proof of a current betrayal, but because it revealed a truth he never knew existed. When he confronted her, she didn't lie. She didn't deny it. She didn't get angry. She simply looked at him with tear-filled eyes and whispered, "I thought you'd never find it. I thought it was buried deep enough." And then she said something that stunned him. "I was trying to protect you." Protecting him, those were her words. In her mind, she convinced herself that as long as the secret stayed hidden, their family would stay whole. She believed that revealing the truth would destroy everything, so she tucked it away in a drawer both literally and emotionally. She told herself she was shielding everyone from unnecessary pain. But the truth doesn't vanish because you hide it. It waits, it lingers, and when it comes out, it doesn't just break trust, it breaks the sense of reality. This man began questioning everything he thought he knew. Their vacations, their anniversaries, the little moments he cherished. Suddenly, all of them felt tainted. He wasn't just mourning her betrayal. He was mourning the past, the years he believed were solid but were actually split by a secret he never saw. That is the cruelest part of betrayal. It doesn't just wound the present, it rewrites the past. It makes you doubt your memories, your perception, your ability to trust your own intuition. It makes you wonder if you ever truly knew the person lying beside you. But here's the part most people never understand. People often imagine betrayal as something cold, calculated, heartless. But in many cases, the secrecy comes from a tangled place where guilt and attachment coexist. She didn't hide the truth because she didn't care. She hid it because she cared too much about the life she already had. She wanted both worlds to stay intact. She wanted the family, the marriage, the history, and she also wanted to preserve the part of herself she had lost somewhere along the way. That is why betrayal is so complicated. The secret isn't always about lust or excitement or escape. Sometimes it's about someone trying to hold on to the life they built, even while wrestling with emotions they never learned to confront. And this leaves the betrayed partner facing the most painful question of all. It's not just, can I forgive her? It's not even, can I trust again? It's deeper and far more devastating. It's, can I trust myself? Because once you realize you missed the signs, once you see the truth was hidden in plain sight, you start doubting your own judgment. You wonder how you didn't see what was happening in the tiny shifts, the soft inconsistencies, the sudden changes in closeness and absence. And this self-doubt can follow someone for years if they don't understand what actually happened inside the other person's psychology. Now that we've seen how betrayal hides in closeness and absence, what comes next is the final layer, the truth behind why the mind hides what it fears will destroy everything. The final layer of understanding is the hardest to face because it asks a question deeper than behavior, deeper than timing or gestures. It asks why. Why does the mind go to such lengths to conceal the truth? Why does someone who loves, who cares, who is committed, risk the fracture of everything they've built just to keep a secret hidden? The answer lies in the way guilt and attachment coexist in the human mind. Guilt is heavy, uncomfortable, almost unbearable, and it drives a powerful, instinctual need to protect both self and others from the consequences of its revelation. Attachment, love, habit, desire tells the mind, I cannot lose this. And when guilt and attachment collide, the mind begins an intricate balancing act. One part rehearses normalcy, overcompensating with warmth and attentiveness. Another part withdraws subtly, absent in small, almost imperceptible ways. All the while, the mind constructs narratives, rationalizations, and layers of silence to keep the world intact, or at least the version of the world it wants to preserve. This is why betrayal is rarely obvious at first glance. It does not always come with harsh words, dramatic fights, or sudden withdrawal. Instead, it manifests in patterns that are so subtle that only the most attentive observer can sense them. The extra sweetness that feels just a touch too rehearsed, the delayed reactions that are almost imperceptible, the small shifts in focus that make your intuition hum quietly. These are the fingerprints of a hidden mind at work. And if you miss them, the truth remains invisible until an artifact of the past surfaces, or a confession finally breaks the surface of normalcy. The cruel paradox is that the secrecy itself often comes from a place of care. Many women don't hide the truth to hurt. They hide it because they fear the collapse of the life around them, the relationships they cherish, the identity they have invested in. They hope, almost desperately, that if the secret is never uncovered, the family, the love, the routine can survive unscathed. But in this act of protection, the hidden truth imprints trauma on both sides. The betrayed partner experiences the ultimate disorientation. Moments once trusted are questioned. Memories once secure become fragile, and faith in personal judgment can falter. This is why the discovery of betrayal is rarely a single event. It's a ripple that rewrites history and reshapes the perception of everything that came before. And the reason most men fail to see it in time isn't ignorance. It's because the signs were there, layered in warmth, absence, timing, and subtle shifts, but they were hidden beneath the mask of a mind struggling to contain its own contradictions. The way forward from this understanding is not revenge or accusation. It is awareness. It is the ability to recognize the signs, not to judge instantly, but to see clearly. The first sign, exaggerated normalcy, teaches you to question sudden shifts in warmth and attentiveness when they feel unlike the person you know. The second sign, subtle absence, teaches you to notice not just the presence of someone, but the quality of that presence, the slight delays, the diffused attention, the inconsistencies in engagement. And the third, the psychological residue of guilt, teaches you that the mind often hides out of fear, not malice, and that understanding this can help rebuild perception, judgment, and eventually trust, either in the same relationship or in future connections. Because knowledge here is empowering. Once you see how a mind protects itself through overcompensation, withdrawal, and silent storytelling, you can stop doubting yourself. You can begin to interpret emotional patterns without immediately assuming the worst, while also being attuned to inconsistencies that hint at deeper realities. You can learn to balance empathy for human complexity with the discernment needed to protect your own emotional well-being. The ultimate lesson is that betrayal, while devastating, is rarely simple. It's a complex interplay of desire, fear, attachment, and the protective mechanisms of the human psyche. And recognizing it isn't about blame, it's about seeing the invisible truth that has always been present. And perhaps the most important insight of all is this: the hidden truth doesn't exist in isolation. It exists in the tension between what is visible and what is concealed, between what the heart wants to protect and what the mind fears will be destroyed. When you grasp that, you understand not only what was hidden, but why. You understand the human mind, the nature of attachment, the weight of guilt, and the lengths to which someone will go to preserve both life and love as they perceive it. This understanding, painful as it may be, can also be freeing. Because once you recognize the patterns, once you see how overcompensation, absence, and secrecy play out, you regain the ability to navigate relationships with clarity, awareness, and self-respect. You learn that the real challenge isn't just spotting betrayal, it's understanding it without letting it dismantle your perception of reality or your ability to connect with others. The journey through these hidden truths can be unsettling, even heartbreaking. You may feel anger, confusion, sadness, and doubt. You may wrestle with memories, reinterpreting moments you once took for granted. But that discomfort is the doorway to insight. It allows you to see the subtle mechanisms of the human mind at work, the ways people unconsciously protect themselves, the complexity behind actions that appear simple on the surface. And once you see these mechanisms clearly, you can approach your own relationships with a new lens. One that values awareness over assumption, empathy over judgment, and truth over denial. Because in the end, the question is not simply what women hide after cheating. It is why they feel compelled to hide it and how those patterns manifest in the mind, the body, and the relationship itself. The performance of closeness, the subtle absence, the psychological residue of guilt, these are not random acts. They are expressions of a human need to protect life, love, and identity from collapse. Understanding this does not excuse betrayal, nor does it erase pain, but it illuminates the mechanisms behind it. And knowledge, once acquired, becomes a tool to recognize patterns, a tool to reclaim trust in your own perception, a tool to engage with relationships with greater clarity, empathy, and insight. Ultimately, what was hidden in silence and subtle gestures becomes visible through awareness. The patterns once invisible can now be recognized. The inconsistencies that whispered doubt now tell a story. And while the emotional aftermath of betrayal may still carry weight, understanding its psychology allows you to navigate the aftermath with purpose, strength, and the confidence that comes from seeing human behavior as it truly is: complex, flawed, and deeply understandable. Because once you know the signs, the reasons, and the patterns, you are no longer at the mercy of silence. You are equipped to recognize it, interpret it, and make choices informed by insight rather than intuition alone. And that understanding, more than anything else, is what can set you free.